7,800. The first number is how many satellites America would have to put into orbit to build the missile shield the president promised.
$7,800 satellites to stop 10 missiles.
Thank you for being here in the Oval Office as we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome missile defense shield. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland. The one big, beautiful bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome.
It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans.
Golden Dome is a bold and aggressive approach to hurry up and protect the homeland from our adversaries.
Sometimes the biggest story isn't hidden inside classified files. It's hidden inside the numbers.
The second number is how many missiles that shield could stop. On the 20th of May, 2025, standing in the Oval Office, the President of the United States announced a shield over America. He said it would cost $175 billion. He said it would be finished in 3 years before he left office. He said it would be nearly 100% effective. 1 year later, Congress's own budget office ran the numbers. $1.2 trillion, 7 times the president's figure. And here is the part almost nobody said out loud. That $1 trillion system, 7,800 interceptors in orbit replaced every 5 years, forever, was not designed to stop a war. It was designed to stop 10 missiles. Russia has roughly 1,500 deployed strategic warheads. So the question isn't whether America can afford the Golden Dome. The question is, what happens when a country spends $1 trillion to find out that it can't be built and can't afford to admit it? 7 days into his second term, President Trump signed an executive order calling for a next-generation missile defense shield over the United States. It was originally named after Israel's Iron Dome. That name lasted a few weeks. Iron Dome shoots down short-range rockets over a country the size of New Jersey. What was being proposed here was something else entirely. So it was renamed Golden Dome. The order asked for a layered system, sensors in orbit, interceptors on the ground, at sea, and in space. Artificial intelligence stitching it together fast enough to make life or death decisions in seconds. Protection against ballistic missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles, cruise missiles, drones. Everything from everywhere all at once. What the order did not contain was a design. No number of satellites, no number of interceptors, no specification of what protected actually meant. Which cities, which threats, which odds. And yet, 4 months later there was a price. $175 billion. Later revised upward by the general running the program to 185. Ask a defense analyst where that number came from, and you get an uncomfortable answer. One budget watchdog put it bluntly. The figure was, in his words, pulled out of thin air. This is the inversion at the heart of the entire program. Normally, you design a weapon, then you price it. Golden Dome was priced first, announced from a podium, on television, to a number that no engineer had signed off on. And everything since has been an attempt to reverse engineer a machine that fits that number. Which raises an obvious question. If you were handed $185 billion and told to build a shield over an entire continent, what could you actually buy? May 2026, the Congressional Budget Office did what the Pentagon would not. It took the executive order, every capability listed in it, and built a model, not a guess, a line-by-line notional architecture, interceptor fields, radar sites, a sensing layer, battle management, and the piece everything depends on: the space-based interceptors. The CBO's answer was 7,800 of them, in near-polar low Earth orbit, around $720 billion to build, deploy, and sustain, 60% of the entire program's cost, all by itself. Now here is the number that should stop you. That constellation, 7,800 satellites, the largest military object ever conceived by any nation, was sized to defend against a raid of 10 intercontinental ballistic missiles launched at roughly the same time. 10, not 100, not 1,000, 10, 780 orbiting interceptors at $22 million apiece for every single incoming missile. And when the Pentagon was shown this estimate, its response was not to dispute the physics. It was to say the CBO had modeled the wrong system. The general leading Golden Dome told reporters of the trillion-dollar estimates. Fair enough. So what is he building? That's classified. And we'll come back to why that answer is more revealing than it sounds. But first, you need to understand why 780 satellites to stop one missile isn't waste or corruption or bad procurement. It's arithmetic. And it's been arithmetic since 1983. An intercontinental ballistic missile is easiest to kill in the first few minutes of its flight. While the engines are still burning, it's enormous, blazingly hot, structurally fragile, and, critically, it hasn't yet released its decoys. Once it does, one warhead becomes dozens of identical looking objects, and the defender's problem becomes almost unsolvable. So you want to hit it during boost phase, which means your interceptor has to already be near the launch site when the missile lifts off. Not minutes away. There are no minutes. The Pentagon pushed back. In April 2026, at a base in Virginia, program leaders announced 3 real milestones: an initial architecture blueprint, complete; a command and control consortium, established; contracts awarded and active. All true, all meaningful. And note what the blueprint is not: public. Meanwhile, the general in charge has quietly noted something the announcement never mentioned. The original executive order contains no requirement to be finished by 2028 at all. So we're told the CBO modeled the wrong system. We're told the real design is different. We're told it's classified, which leaves one possibility that explains the secrecy better than any other. And this is where orbital mechanics turns on you. A satellite in low Earth orbit cannot hover. It circles the planet roughly every 90 minutes, at around 17,000 miles an hour, and it is over any given patch of ground for a matter of moments before it's gone. Physicists have a name for this: the absenteeism problem. At any given instant, almost your entire constellation is in the wrong place. You are not buying 7,800 interceptors. You are buying 7,800 satellites in order to have a handful of them overhead at the moment you need them. The American Physical Society ran this analysis in 2004. The National Academies ran it again in 2012. Both reached the same conclusion, and the conclusion has not changed because the laws of orbital motion have not changed. And now the part that decides everything. The cost of the defense scales linearly with the size of the attack. Want to stop 20 missiles instead of 10? Double the constellation. 15,000 satellites. 40 missiles? 30,000. Meanwhile, the attacker's cost of adding one more missile, or one more decoy, or simply launching from a different direction, is a rounding error. This is the cost exchange ratio. Every dollar the defender spends can be defeated by a fraction of a dollar from the other side. It is the reason no missile shield in history has ever been finished. Not because the engineering was too hard, because the arithmetic never closes. But there's a second number buried in the CBO report. It isn't about how many satellites you launch. It's about how long they last. 5 years. That's the service life the CBO assigns to each space-based interceptor. Not because the hardware fails, because of where it has to live. Low orbit isn't empty. There's enough residual atmosphere down there to drag on anything you put in it. The satellite bleeds altitude. Eventually it falls, which means the constellation is not a purchase. It's a subscription. To keep 7,800 interceptors on station, the United States would have to build and launch roughly 1,600 replacement satellites every year, indefinitely, forever. That's more than 4 a day in perpetuity, just to stay still. No nation has ever sustained a launch tempo remotely like that. And every one of those launches costs money that buys no new capability whatsoever. It buys the same 10 missile defense you already had 1 more year. This is why the $1 trillion figure isn't scaremongering. Just over $1 trillion of it is acquisition. The rest is the treadmill, the cost of not falling out of the sky. So if the physics has been public since 2004, and the cost estimates are public now, how did this program get funded at all? The answer is that most of the people who voted for the money have not been allowed to see what they were buying in July 2025. Congress appropriated roughly $25 billion toward Golden Dome inside a much larger bill. Then something strange happened. Or rather, nothing happened. By January 2026, 1 year after the executive order, Reuters reported that the program had made minimal headway. The money was barely moving. Progress was stalled by technical disagreements and by an internal fight over the classified space-based portion of the architecture. A fight that reportedly included whether those satellites should also carry the ability to attack other nations' satellites. Hold that thought. That same month, the Government Accountability Office found something more basic. There was no architecture-level schedule. Nothing that tracked how a delay in one piece would cascade into the 2028 deadline. There was a deadline, and there were programs, but no master timeline connecting them. And Congress's own appropriators wrote, in plain language, that they had received insufficient budget information to conduct oversight. There isn't even a single clean Golden Dome line item to follow. One defense analyst described the program as one of unprecedented, maybe the most valuable thing in orbit was never the shield. Here is an uncomfortable engineering fact. A satellite capable of firing a projectile that destroys a missile in flight is, by definition, a satellite capable of firing a projectile that destroys another satellite. There is no meaningful hardware difference, only intent, which means that from Moscow or Beijing, 7,800 American interceptors in low Earth orbit do not read as a shield. They read as the largest anti-satellite weapon ever deployed, permanently overhead on a 90-minute cycle. And an adversary has 3 rational responses. 1. Build more missiles, because the arithmetic is on their side. A handful of extra warheads defeats hundreds of billions in defense. 2. Build weapons the shield wasn't designed for. Hypersonic glide vehicles that fly low and maneuver. Fractional orbital systems that approach from the south over a hemisphere with no coverage. 3. And this is the one that keeps arms control experts awake. Target the constellation itself, before a war, as the opening move. Attacking 7,800 satellites in low orbit doesn't just blind a defense. It could seed a debris cascade that renders low Earth orbit unusable for everyone. Communications, navigation, weather, banking timestamps, the invisible infrastructure that modern civilian life runs on. There's a paradox at the center of all of this. A shield that works perfectly would end nuclear deterrence. A shield that doesn't work at all is a waste of money. But a shield that half works is the most dangerous object on Earth, because it tempts the side that owns it into believing it can survive a first exchange, and it terrifies the other side into striking before it's finished. And yet, the money keeps moving, faster now than ever. Whatever is or isn't happening in orbit, something very real is happening on the ground. In April 2026, the Space Force awarded 20 agreements to 12 companies to develop space-based interceptors, a potential combined value of up to $3.2 billion, with integration targeted for 2028. This was announced weeks after the program's own director publicly warned that space-based interceptors might not survive the final design on cost grounds. In July 2026 alone, $1.75 billion for 36 missile tracking satellites, $2 billion for a pair of new missile tracking ships. A launch contract ceiling tripled, $17 billion of headroom, extended through 2029 across 7 launch providers, roughly $19 billion of contracting activity in a single week. And in the same period, the optical laser mesh, the network of crosslinks that lets these satellites actually talk to each other, the nervous system of the entire kill chain, was still running months behind schedule. It had not been demonstrated at scale. This is the part of Golden Dome that is unambiguously succeeding. Not the shield, the market. An entire ecosystem of primes, startups, and venture funds has reorganized itself around a program whose central component may never be built, and a small detail that says everything. In the House's fiscal 2027 defense spending bill, the line explicitly labeled Golden Dome for America was $397.9 million. Less than $400 million, for a program announced at $185 billion. The rest is scattered across a dozen other accounts, in a dozen other programs, where almost nobody can add it up. Which brings us to the only question that actually matters. Not whether the Golden Dome will work, whether it was ever supposed to. On the 23rd of March, 1983, another American president stood in front of a camera and promised to render nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete. They called it the Strategic Defense Initiative. The press called it Star Wars. It ran for a decade. It consumed tens of billions of dollars. It produced no shield, not one deployed interceptor in orbit. By almost any engineering standard, it was a failure. And yet, historians still argue about it. Because the Soviet Union believed it, Soviet planners spent enormously trying to counter a system that was never built. Arms control talks bent around it. Some argue it helped bankrupt an empire. So maybe that's the honest reading of the Golden Dome. Not a shield, a signal. A way of telling adversaries, we will spend at a scale you cannot match, in a domain you cannot contest, indefinitely. But signals have prices. Reagan's cost tens of billions in a very different economy. This one is being estimated at $1 trillion or more in a country carrying record debt, against not one adversary, but two. One of which is building its own version, faster, and with fewer people asking questions. And the physics hasn't moved. Not since 1983, not since 2004. A satellite still orbits every 90 minutes. It's still absent when you need it. The attacker still spends a fraction of what the defender does. The math is not a problem to be solved by better engineering. The problem isn't the missiles, it's the math. Thousands of satellites to stop just 10. If you found this story fascinating, subscribe for more deep dives into the world's biggest defense secrets.